Okay, good afternoon. I'd like to call the April 29th, 2025 Measure U Citizen Oversight Committee meeting to order. I would like to point out that this meeting is being recorded through Zoom teleconference. Deputy Clerk, may we have a roll call, please?
Thank you, Chair. Committee Member Amat.
Here.
Committee Member Banuelos.
Here.
Committee Member Collins.
Here.
Committee Member Kelly. Committee Member Mraz. Vice Chair Clark.
Here.
Chair Chenault.
Here.
All members are present with the exception of Committee Member Kelly and Committee Member Mraz. And then Chair and committee members, we have a request from Committee Member Banuelos to participate remotely under the Just Cause provisions under AB 2449. Committee Member Banuelos is appearing remotely due to a need for childcare, which requires her to participate remotely. We also have another item we must read into the record. Committee Member Banuelos, can you disclose if there is anyone else in the room with you over the age of 18? And if so, your relationship with that person?
No, just me and my daughter.
Thank you, Committee Member Banuelos. Chair, we will need a motion and a second to approve Committee Member Banuelos' request to participate remotely under the Just Cause provisions under AB 2449.
Okay, I move that we allow Committee Member Banuelos to participate remotely.
I'll second it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. We have a motion by Chair Chenault, second by Vice Chair Clark to approve the request. Committee Member Amat.
Yes. Well, I wasn't listening. I'm sorry.
A roll call for the request. Committee Member Amat.
Yeah, that's fine.
Committee Member Collins.
Aye. Vice
Chair Clark.
Yes.
Chair Chenault.
Yes.
That motion passes 4-0 to approve the remote participation of Committee Member Banuelos under the AB 2449 Just Cause provisions. And then I would like to note that we did have an appearance by Committee Member Delia Mraz.
Okay, Committee Member Collins will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Please stand.
With your covers, and over your heart. Ready, begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America,
America.
and to the republic
For which it stands,
one
one
nation,
nation, under God,
indivisible, with
liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we will now move to public comments. There is a 3-minute per person time limit for all general public comments on the agenda items. All who wish to speak, including committee members and staff, need to be recognized by the chair before speaking. Please state your name and the item you are commenting on before speaking. We will take public comment for the items listed on the agenda.
And Chair Chenault, we have no public comment.
Okay. Deputy City Clerk, are there any additional registered speakers?
And no additional speakers.
Okay, we will now move to the consent calendar. Okay, are there any committee members who would like to comment on the consent item for the meeting minutes of April 15th, 2025? Okay, I would like to note a correction in section 6 about the appointment. It stated in there, it says that committee member Dick Clark was nominated to serve as the chair when it should state vice chair.
We will note that correction.
Okay.
We have a motion to approve.
Okay, can I have a motion to approve?
Make a motion to approve with the chair's correction. I'll second.
Okay, Deputy Clerk, may we have a roll call?
Thank you, Chair. We have a motion by Committee Member Collins, second by Vice Chair Clark to approve the consent calendar. I will do a roll call. Committee Member Amat.
Yes,
Committee Member Banuelos.
she's on the thing right.
Committee Member Banuelos.
Yes, sorry, I couldn't unmute myself. Yes.
Committee Member Collins.
Yes.
Committee Member Mraz.
Yes.
Vice Chair Clark.
Yes.
Chair Chanel.
Yes.
That motion passes 6-0 to approve the meeting minutes.
Okay. We will now move to our discussion items. Can we please get a report from staff on item 6A?
Okay. Thank you, everybody, for being here. Tiffany Barnett, Administrative Services Director. We're going to go ahead and start with our PowerPoint presentation. And it's going to start out going over the fiscal year 23-24 ACFR.
You're gonna do this a lot after.
Yes. The Annual Comprehensive Financial Report, otherwise known as ACFR. Let me see here. Okay, so you can advance the slide. The purpose of today's meeting is to recap the 23-24 final audited and financial numbers. We're going to review the fund balance and then review the fiscal year 25-26 allocation methodology, the budget impacts and cost drivers, and this will be for next fiscal year's upcoming budget. And then we're also going to review the fiscal year 25-26 draft budget summary for Measure U, which will lay out the groundwork that we're looking at for next fiscal year. And then the option to appoint a committee members to draft the transmittal letter to the city council. I just want to remind everybody of the committee roles here. You're responsible for reviewing and reporting on the city's proposed and actual proceeds of the that's generated by this use tax. And then review and report on the independent annual audit. So that's what your roles as the committee members are. So we're going to go ahead and look at a recap of the fiscal year 23-24 Measure U budget. But before we do that, I kind of wanted to break down what the annual comprehensive financial report is about. It's our comprehensive financial statement for the entire city's all of their funds, general fund, all the way down to water, public works, everything is included. So it is a very large document. I was able to get the most up-to-date draft, which I sent to you guys last night. It is a very large document. It has a lot of information and people can kind of get lost in the interpretation of everything. So what I've done is I've kind of extracted all of the Measure U into one graph here that will show you. But because Measure U is considered a general use tax, it can't be reported any special way. So the auditors roll that up into our regular general fund. So the number for Measure U is included in the general fund overall numbers. So what we do to make it more transparent to the public is we create our own worksheets that track it, that the committee members, the public can see what Measure U is receiving as far as revenue goes and what we're spending as far as the expenditure goes. So with that, you'll only see Measure U within the ACFR document in the beginning section, which is considered our management discussion and analysis, otherwise known as MD&A. And then in the required or a supplementary information area of the ACFR, which is where we can provide additional information that is not, I don't want to say it's not, it doesn't affect any compliance issues with the regular financial statements. So in the ACFR itself, you have the introductory section, which is the transmittal letter that is provided by management, which is usually the city manager. And I guess it would help if we had the document up. Did I have that for you, Elodie? Just if we can get that going. And I'll
Doing that, can I ask a quick question?
No.
Because this is incorporated, Measure U is incorporated into the big one.
Mhm.
We don't even have to discuss or do, what was it called a couple of years ago? I think was the last time we did it for Measure U, there was a specific word, there was like, I know you're, there was like a,
P.
yeah,
Agreed upon.
There we go.
procedures. Yeah, yeah.
we don't have to do that anymore because it's within.
Yeah, there's no requirement for that. It's required to be audited, which we audit all of our funds every year. But there has always been that, I think it's more of a misunderstanding of Measure U. Because it is a general use tax, it has to be reported with the general fund. So there's no way that we can actually separate it out in the financial statement, which is why we offer the supplemental graphs and to show that the public that this is how the funds are being used.
Just always seemed like a duplicate bill that we were paying.
Yeah, yeah. So, yeah, Elodie, she's brought up the comprehensive financial report. And as you scroll through, you'll see the first part is the introductory section, which will have the letter that is from the actual city manager. It's just kind of giving an overview of what has happened in the fiscal year, any impacts that it has. So that is the introductory section that flows into the transmittal letter from the auditor. Let's see here, keep going. The auditor is in the process of finalizing the document. We just need a couple things that are pending from the attorneys for future litigation. That has been provided by Cole Huber, I know, this afternoon, so we'll be able to finalize the document. And what it's doing is they're gonna be dating the date on their letter, on the auditor's letter. So this is what's considered the independent auditor's report. And that's where a lot of the confusion was on an independent auditor's report. This is what the document is called, and this is industry-wide. And what they're doing is they're providing an opinion. And that's what it's called, of what they're doing when they review all of the financial statements, is they're offering their opinion on what if our financials are presented fairly and accurately. So this is their independent auditor's report. Once that's finalized, it'll be dated. And then it moves into the management discussion and analysis, which is the MD&A. And this is where management provides a further discussion on all of the financial information, provides a little more graphical presentation that we can see what prior year occurred and what current year is where we stand financially. So yeah, and this is where the MD&A section starts. And it's probably about 12 to 13 pages in length. And it's more or less a summary. It kind of takes a lot of everything that's in that document and puts it into a summarized dialogue through here with some graphs. So, and then what you do is after this introductory section, you jump into the financial section, which is your basic financial statements, which is really the meat of the document that everybody is really looking into. And the way that it gets presented, and I'll let Elodie catch up here. You're almost there. The next one should be coming in.
There we go.
Yeah. So you have the statement of net position. So it has the governmental activities, which is basically all of our funds. The business type activity would be our water fund. So that's the difference between the two columns. And it gives you all of the assets, the cash and investments for all funds for the governmental activity. And then the water fund is the business type activity. And then it goes in and it has different presentations of everything. You have your, this one is the statement of net position. And then you go into the next one, which here is the statement of activities, which shows the expenditures over the revenue over expenditures. And then I don't like how their software does it to where it goes on to the next page and you can't really see. But then it goes further and it breaks down the general fund, and then you have your special revenue funds, which is your sewer and storm drain, the ARPA fund. Yeah. And then it even goes even further and it actually takes each fund individually. And it shows its revenue over expenditures, its net position. So there's a lot of meat within the financial section of the document. And that also flows over into the supplementary and informational services, which is further into the document that has all of our note disclosures. And the notes are like little extra things that help the reader understand more in detail, like what we have in our capital assets as our beginning fund balance and what we've added, what's been depreciated over time. And then one of the important ones is, I think it's note 10, is going to be the fund balance, which breaks down the fund balance into the categories. And that's where everybody is really looking to see what does the city have that they can spend on future costs. So yeah, you don't really have to go through the entire document. I just wanted you guys to see kind of how it's chunked into pieces. The ending section is the statistical section, which gives a 10-year snapshot of everything that's happened from population to calls for service, how much water the city's produced, how many miles of streets. It has almost anything that you can think of in the statistical section. When people ask us for a lot of public records requests, since this is the document that is the official document of the city, this is where we go to pull that information. So it's very useful. And I don't think a lot of people know that statistical section is there. So it ranks like the highest employment businesses here in the city, from highest to lowest. So there's a lot of detail in here.
Nice.
I know Elodie's going to say by age. Yeah. So, like I said, it's a lot of information, and I don't expect you all to have it under wraps and, within a matter of hours. So there's always plenty of time to review it. We can always schedule another meeting down the road to kind of go into it in more detail if you review it and you have questions. Right there's the fund balance. Yeah, so this is the note 10 that shows the fund balance. You have your non-spendable items, which are like your prepayments. And this is where the auditors did allow us to break out Measure U. So we do have Measure U listed there. Their prepaid items are the two large fire, or their engines, right, Chief? That are in that category, along with some prepaid items. And then you have your restricted, which is our PEG funds are in there. And then housing and community development grants. And then we have the committed category, that's where our reserve is. And this year we have a 40% economic stabilization reserve, which puts us at 21 million. And then we do have the Measure U stabilization broken out here as well. Yes. So what it is Measure U is committed. So everything falls under that committed category, but the auditors allow us to separate it out so it can be much more transparent what is for police and what is for fire. And then we further break it down out into the 20%. So the general fund gets a 40% economic reserve, where Measure U has a 20% reserve. And then the assigned are any of our capital improvement projects that are going to be carried forward into the next year. That's where so they're earmarked for those projects. The unassigned balance is truly what is available for spending in the next year. So that's how you come up with your it's about $72 million in the fund balance. So it is broken into categories, so it's not all free and clear to use. And that's, I think, equally important for the public to know, is that even though we do have a large fund balance, it is committed for certain projects. So it's not like it's completely available. So, and then you'll go further into the statistical section, or you're actually going to hit the supplementary information. So there, yeah. And this is where we have the Measure U Oh, this one isn't. Yeah. So if this part is taking what we had budgeted originally and then what the final expenditures were. And it goes fund by fund. So if you go through it, you can see which fund we did. Now, what is this part? Okay, changes in that position over the last, I think it's 10 years. And there's your top employers. Or no, I'm sorry. But anyway, like I said, it's a lot of information, and if you want, I can always go through it with you guys one-on-one in more depth and more details, so it's easier to understand. But I just wanted to let you guys know that's how the ACFR is actually broken down into segments. So if you want, Elodie, we can go back to the PowerPoint presentation. So you can see that the beginning fund balance was 19.4 almost for the Measure U, and it is split between police and fire. We do track this every year since inception. And then the revenues we earned were 16.1 million. And this is broken down into the categories of 2/3 for police and 1/3 for fire. And then the expenditures for the 23-24 year are broken down to the actuals that we spent for police and fire. And then we further break it down into the salary and fringe benefits, which is your personnel cost, the operating supplies and services, which would be like your professional services, your actual, supplies that you order for, it could be anything from like suppression outfits to paper. And then you have your internal service charges, which are like departments like IT and your fleet maintenance that all departments pay into to fund these programs for all of the internal departments. And then your capital outlay is your actual CIP projects, your large purchases, improvements on buildings, anything along those lines. And then the net effect between your revenue over expenditures is what the change in fund balance is. And then that's deducted or added to your beginning fund balance to bring you to your ending fund balance. And then we further break down the ending fund balance into the categories of non-spendable, which is like the fire engines, which is your prepaids. And then the committed is your 20% reserve, and then everything else is still considered committed. So that is the breakdown of the 23-24 Measure U in review. So it is a lot of information, and this gives us the fund balance for the end of the year. And I know that this is still a lot of this is the same slide that was shared with you at our last meeting, where we did end the 24 with the reserve balance of $21.4 million. And then the total fund balance was about 72 million, with about 18.9 being Measure U, and the rest was general fund. And you can see that the fund balance has gradually increased. Projecting out, it's probably not going to continue to grow significantly. So this is just the picture of the fund balance.
In fact, it will likely decline because we're looking at a budget next year that will be dipping into reserves to maintain services. The choice is either we fill positions or we dip into reserves, and we do know there's some longer term revenue growth that will happen. We'll just have to slow down the expenditures longer term, but it will likely mean that we won't be able to add staff for a while until the revenues catch up longer term.
Are you talking about Measure U staff?
Anything citywide general
Oh, okay.
fund. Yeah, but it will, the Measure U, the positions that are supported by Measure U are sustained in the proposed budget. So, but it's flat. So we don't have any new positions added to the budget this year. We had some modest additions in the current year, and we had some larger additions in the prior year. putting some of those larger surpluses to work for us, both in the investments were people as well as some projects. But we do want to try to preserve as much of our fund
Mhm.
balance as possible because it's working for us in other positive ways, particularly because the interest rates are a little higher today. We're in the 4+ range, whereas a couple of years ago, it would have been an investment of 1% on a lot of our,
If we were
if
looking,
1%. Yeah.
So this is the allocation methodology that we're going into the next fiscal year, 25-26. And it just is kind of a presentation of how the funding is split between public safety and non-public safety. So we do have the Measure U side and then the general fund side. And we do the 72%, 28% split on public safety, non-public safety for general fund. And then that 72% is actually further broken down into the 2/3 and 1/3 for fire. So overall, in that bottom corner, you see what's broken out for public safety and then what's non-public safety. And that's what makes up all of the general fund revenue.
What is non-public safety? What is that?
That would be anything from along the lines, you have your streets, your water, you have fleet, you even have, I'm trying to think who's in there, streets, LLMD. Can you think of anything else, Mark, off the
Or
non-public safety? Library is
Okay.
another one. Well, city manager, finance, admin services, HR. That's pretty much the rest of the city. That is not police or fire. So
Okay.
anything not. So that's and this is just the general fund portion. So that wouldn't really be considered so much water and sewer and storm drain. That's more gonna be your parks, your library, your city manager, city council, finance, HR, is gonna make up that non-public safety. Well, and planning. So your building and code in those departments. Oh, did you advance it? Okay. So these are considerations that are having an impact on our budget that really are out of our control. And this is the CalPERS rate performance over years. And it's about a 10-year span. So back in 2015, the city paid about 47% for safety members for their PERS contribution. And now looking into 26, it's at 70%. So that is a significant increase. The same with miscellaneous employees. Miscellaneous would be anybody that is not public safety, which would be like myself, the city manager. Those started in 27 and they were even significantly lower if you went back into the late 90s, which is actually another project that I'm working on just so we can see. And then now we're looking into at a 43%. So it's about 43% of what an employee already costs is what we are paying on top of per CalPERS costs. So these are things that we cannot control as a city. We're just kind of stuck with it. And as they did the pension reform, which got rid of the classic membership and put people into what's considered PEPRA, which is the formula is a little bit, you have to work longer and you get a lower percentage rate. So that is something that they've implemented that is a cost savings, but it's still not a significant enough cost saving. But you can see that the classic members they're kind of progressing out of the system, and then PEPRAs are actually coming up because that's the newer people.
So all the new people coming in.
Are under PEPRA now.
And yet the city's costs are higher than they've ever been.
Yeah.
So it's important to see that. I don't know if that's your next slide.
Yeah. The historical,
Yeah.
yes. So, let me advance the slide. Okay. So this is the pension, which is what we're paying in the CalPERS cost in that first column. So we go back from 2015 where we were about 6.7, and now we're looking at $17.5 million just in pension alone. The OPEB, which is other post-employment benefits, which is for retirees specifically. The city actually offered a very lucrative health plan for the lifetime of employees back in the day. And that cost has grown significantly. And the only way to really get out from under that is as those retirees pass through the system, they pass away, and then the liability will reduce. I know that Mark has kind of talked about that more, how with the benchmark has kind of advanced. We were expecting to start declining on both pension and OPEB, but because the discount rate has decreased, and when the discount rate for pension decreased, that actually increases the city's costs. So it's actually prolonged us trying to get on that downhill slope of pension and OPEB. So we probably have about another, was it 2030 we're looking at? It might start taking a downwards turn. So we still are going to be increasing, but it will finally plateau and start to decrease. But this is just a good presentation of what the city pays for annually, just for pension and retiree costs. So going into 26, we're at like almost 22.5 million, $22.4 million just in pension and health costs. That doesn't even include regular salaries. So. And then this is our liability insurance premium. This is another slide that we had at our last meeting. We still haven't received any updates from what we're looking at. Our premium is still being budgeted at $6.5 million. Our SIRs, which are the self-insurance rate, which is kind of basically like a deductible, is 6 million for safety incidences and 2 million for non-public safety incidences. So these are the three main concerns that we're really looking into each year that we set out our budget. And they are kind of, we're working to get the liability insurance turned around. I know that Chief Ariano can really speak to that. We've implemented so many good things in the agency to try and get it to where it's not such a bad reputation, but there's also the length of claims is part of the whole the practice on how they've set our premiums. And once we do have a large claim that happened, I want to say about 5 years ago, and it was about $25 million that the city lost on a claim. And because of that, that was a huge contribution to why the insurance company Cal JPIA actually dropped us, was because of that, along with some larger use of force claims that were presented. So this slide here is the expenditure cost drivers. So this is comparing what is costing us more going into 25, 26 than what it was in this current fiscal year when we started budget. The liability, of course, is the largest thing. It's the premium is it's $5 million, but that also it includes us increasing 1.8 million for 25, 26, along with 3.2 million that was paid through one-time use of fund balance. So we need to make that up going into the next fiscal year. So that's a accumulation of $5 million. And then we did have a vacancy factor that we used in 24, 25, which this year, which is, it's good news. We actually don't have that problem anymore because of the compensation increases that were done to bring all of our employees up to market average. So that's an additional 3 million that we used as a vacancy factor that we need to account for as far as an ongoing cost. And then we budgeted additional liability excess claim funding for 1.7 million in the next fiscal year. And then the annual UAL, the unfunded accrued liability, which is CalPERS, and this is actually future liability that the city hasn't realized yet, but we have to contribute towards it. And that's an increase of $1 million. And this is another one that'll increase as years go by, that the city has no control over that. And then we also have about another $1 million increase, which is from the regular step progression increases of employees, along with a 3% COLA. So like I said, we went through a citywide salary survey last fiscal year that was implemented in this fiscal year. So that's just additional costs that we're looking at going into the next fiscal year. So these are our main drivers that are costing the city going into our next budget year. So. This one here is our resources, which is also our revenue. So, and this is complete general fund, recommended budgets, proposed for 25-26. The second line item, so I've tried to star everything that's Measure U, so you can see what is specific to Measure U. Everything else is, it's identified as sales tax, property tax. You have, community development revenues, which would be anything that could be from building permits, code enforcement, fines and penalties. Your franchise fees, which a large majority of that is still a franchise agreement that we have with CR&R. The general admin, you have your transient occupancy tax, which would be your hotel tax. We're looking to have that increased a little bit because we did change the tax from 10% to 12%. In addition, we have joined forces with HDL, which is a consultant who's actually going out to the hotels, motels really. And they're doing audits of their books, which has never been done in years. So they were able to go back 3 years worth and uncover over $500,000 in unsubmitted funding. So that's putting them on notice that the city is now looking into their pocketbooks, and we're going to hold them accountable. And if they're not willing to come into compliance, they're a lot of them are eyesores, and I mean, you being members of the community, you know that they create a lot of work for our public safety, police and fire. So that's something that is good that we're looking to get more revenue out of that, along with looking into exploring different options like Airbnb and things like that. So that's what we're looking for in the future. Plus, we also do have cannabis tax that actually has started this fiscal year. We've gotten 2 payments thus far, from one dispensary that is currently active in the city. So we're looking to see about 200,000 come out of that next year. And that's really only taking into maybe having 2 storefronts. We are allowed up to 5. So that's just room to grow. So this is where we stand on all of our revenue.
So what's the total revenue?
81.5 million. So down in that corner there, the blue corner.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to see.
Yeah. Yeah, I can't really see it, but so 81.5. And this again is all just general fund. So
Could I just comment on this a
Mhm.
little bit? On the start item here, it's notable that the projected revenue is higher than next year's budgeted revenue. So it's an example that the sales tax has been slowing. We're down about 4 to 5%. A lot of that is car sales. We probably mentioned that at the last meeting, but just know that when we have certain costs that are built in, like adjustments to salary, we experience increases to healthcare costs, things like that. Those costs are going up, but the revenue is actually sliding a little bit, slipping a little bit. It's not a cliff, so that's good. We're hopeful that Some of that was, is going to be temporary related to interest rates. And next year's forecast that we have here aligns with data that we were just, presented about an hour and a half ago.
Mhm.
So our projection isn't too far off. There may be an opportunity to grow that just a little bit, but not much.
Yeah, so the sales tax is declining, but it's almost at a very minimal rate, so. Now, this is the uses, which is also your expenditures. So we have all of the estimated expenditures for each department. And then we do separate out the Measure U for police and fire. So you can see in that far right-hand column, which each department is costing to the general fund. And then we have the highlighted item, which is your non-departmental, is that's our liability insurance. The premium, we actually originally had it housed under police. And since it would really skew their budget because it's anticipated only to be for a couple of years to be that significantly high, we actually moved it down into non-departmental. So that's why there's a huge jump from that 328,000 to the 6.4 is because of the liability insurance. So our expenditures are 88.2 million, which in the simple terms, it's your revenue over your expenditures. So you can see that this is a operational deficit. So looking into the use of one-time fund balance investments, we're looking at $2.2 million of non-departmental, and I'll actually go into that in the next slide, what that kind of breaks down to be. And then there's nothing yet for Measure U for the police department. The fire department is proposing to have two projects that are going to be use of one-time fund balance from their Measure U. So you have the total, it's 90.8 million about in expenditures. That includes the one-time use of fund balance. And then you have your transfers of 200,000. So that brings you to almost $91 million. And then what we're doing is we're accounting for a vacancy factor of about $500,000. And that is in positions that we are not going to be really recruiting for in this next fiscal year. It's a total of 4 different positions. And I will show that on the next slide. And then the interest income is interesting because we're doing so well with getting we have so much liquid funds and investments in the bank that we're earning, it's over 4% interest, which is significant, and it's bringing in a large amount of revenue to us, but it's something that we don't want to become dependent on. So we don't account for it in the actual budget, but we're looking to receive it on the other end. So this is where we're kind of just plugging it in to show that we're looking at the end of the day like a $3.4 million deficit, which is still significant. But without that interest income, it is truly like a $6.4 million deficit. So that means you have to dip into general fund reserves to balance your budget. And this is that breakdown of about the $2.2 million. The large share of that is our pension 115 trust, which is driven by policy. So that's where we're kind of contributing money to the future pensions to try and help negate some of the liability that the city's incurring is setting some money aside in a trust fund. And then we also do have some renewals of some of our programs that we're going to look to investing into, which is the kitchen grant program, the facade improvement program, community enrichment grants, vandalism relief. And then we are looking to repair the digital sign at the library that's been out for several years. And then we're doing a full comprehensive fee study, which is done every 5 years. So we're going to use of one-time fund balance for that. And then replace the front doors. That's the City Hall library. The mechanisms are old and they're failing. And there's been several times where the alarms have gone off because the doors don't secure. And then we're looking at contributing some to Him Beautiful and the beautification program. And of course, these are all just proposed right now. They can change, they could either be decreased or more projects could be added.
Let me put something in perspective on this number, because this is a draw on our general fund surplus. But I want to contrast it with the current year. In the current year, we have about $10 million of one-time money being invested in services, supplies, challenges like insurance costs. Insurance is a big part of that. This year it was $2.4 to $2.7 million. But that also includes $2 million that went to roads last year in the current year budget. So we've tried to put some of that surplus to work. And this 1.5 million at the top is actually an investment into a rainy day fund to help with pension costs. So someday during a future rainy day, we can draw upon that $1.5 million. So we've actually taken our expenditures from $10 million, a $10 million draw on our general fund surplus, down to about $600,000. So we're trying to, again, protect the general fund surplus by limiting the amount of money that we're using for one-time purchases. What's going to be different about this is the draw on the reserve because of the imbalance in the budget. So we're still going to draw on the general fund surplus, but it's not going to be nearly as high as what the effort is. So that I want to make sure that we're clear on.
So those last 4 slides are kind of like the meat for the new budget. So it just kind of rolls everything up and puts it into perspective by department. So the next slide here is the revenue summary going into next year. And it's just for Measure U, where we're projecting right now 16.184 million. And then of course, the split 2/3, 1/3 police and fire. So that's their allocation that they get towards the expenditure side of the equation. And that is this slide here. We have the police department spending plan for the next fiscal year. They have about $10.8 million. Almost 10 million alone is on salary, and so it's on personnel costs. And then they do have some operating supplies. And then the internal service charges, which again is something that all departments contribute into to support the internal service funds, which would be like the general fund overhead, the fleet services, facilities, IT, all of that is in those categories. So that's how we're proposing to break up their expenditures for next fiscal year. And then this is the same for fire. Fire's allocation is about $15.4 million. I'm sorry, what did I say?
15.
Yeah, that's what I thought I said. $5.4 million. Yeah, I know, yeah.
Thank you.
And about 5.1 alone is just on personnel. So that is the large majority of Measure U funding goes towards personnel costs. So. And then this is just to show what Measure U is funding for positions wise. They do support human resource analyst. Then there's the fire department broken out by the positions that the Measure U is funding. So you have 16 positions and then 41 positions for the police department. So it's a total, and then a maintenance worker it helps the Aero team. So it's a grand total of about almost 60 employees that Measure U funds. So. And then that is the conclusion of the presentation. If there's any questions, I'm available, and the chiefs are here too. So, and then the next steps of action, of course, is if you wanted to appoint committee members to draft your transmittal letter. And then right now we do have the next meeting is proposed for May 20th, but that may be, I think it's conflicting for a few people. So we're looking for suggestions for maybe a different date. So I will turn it over to,
And just a word, I'm sorry to add on again, on the transmittal, this is really something that we expect will take multiple meetings again. So if you're volunteering your time to help draft, your first step is perhaps to start with an outline, right? And build, and then probably a check-in at your subsequent meeting with the committee, so the ad hoc that would be created to begin drafting would share, so a future agenda item will be that group of 2 or 3 people, let's say, sharing with the rest of the committee what their draft starts to look like. They'll get some feedback from the broader committee. Can we add something like this? Can we add an exhibit? I have a different opinion. Can I add a minority perspective? And then we'll go through an iterative process where you'll ultimately land on your final product, and we'll take as many meetings as you need in order to do that. But because the concept here is to use an ad hoc committee where people can meet without a Brown Act notice, 2 or 3 people, those 2 or 3 people can get together as regularly as needed to work on that document. It should help to make sure you don't have endless meetings reviewing the draft letter. Is that helpful?
Mhm.
Okay.
What is the city gonna do about getting more tax money? I'm really worried now.
You wouldn't believe the meetings we had today. We were in this room with investors that looked at a lot of different property. They have interest in a number of our incentive programs. We established contact with an auto sports dealer in Riverside. And we're going to be talking about the city's incentive program to encourage an expansion of their business to Hemet. Anyone that's selling vehicles, motorcycles, off-road, boats, marine, generates a lot of sales tax for the city. So we're actively chasing those businesses. And we have an incentive on the table for the next 10 years that will pay up to $10 million for a new dealership. And it will share 1/2 of the Bradley Burns sales tax. That means immediately from day one, we earn 1/2 of that Bradley Burns. And then we also earn 100% of the Measure U money from any new dealership. So in effect, we're still receiving 3/4 of what we would have received. But we're expecting that incentive is going to open some doors. So we have dirt at the auto mall that's never been converted to sales tax producing assets. We're working hard to set the table for that. So that ordinance just went live about this week. It's been about 30 days since the second reading of that ordinance. And we're actively talking to dealerships and other creative ideas like this.
Now, what about that warehouse on Kirby?
Your house? The warehouse?
Is that gonna generate anything?
That generates income for employees, and we do expect over 500 employees will be joining that building. So they themselves will be contributing gas tax and sales tax to the city. The asset will not produce sales tax. It's just the employee's paycheck will be used for sales tax producing, generation. But some warehouses produce point of sale. If it was a retail type of center, this one does not. So a Costco, for example, would. That could generate $4.8 million a year in a combination of Measure U and Bradley Burns 1%. Could be $4.8 million a year, but this warehouse will not produce sales tax, but it will produce property tax. It's probably in the neighborhood of somewhere in the $70,000 to $120,000 annual range. So think of it as about the equivalent of one job in the city out of that one warehouse.
Well, I had 2 of my family members that live in Menifee come to the auto mall here in Hemet and buy their cars.
We appreciate that.
And I bought mine there too.
We're
I
actually
talked them into it, coming here and buying them.
we're not gonna let the staff out of here until they commit to buying a car.
I bought my car.
Sometime this later this week. Of course, I need to take that vow myself, right?
And I can also elaborate too, we have a fantastic economic development manager. And I don't know if you've met him at all. His name is Ben Sandoval. He's very good at drumming up the business. So he's a good face for him to be out there, and he's just very engaging and he's very charismatic, and he's really good. He's like the perfect person for the job. So I know he's out there turning over every leaf.
He doesn't, we don't allow him to sleep. His job is revenue generation. And I think we're planting seeds today that are gonna grow really nicely for Emmett. And we were in this room 3 hours ago, pitching to 9 different people. A number of different investment opportunities, so. I think we'll see those seeds pay dividends down the road, but we just have to be patient for some of that.
Been any movement on somebody coming in, taking over where the RV place left? The manufacturing?
Oh, in Forest River.
Mhm.
In fact, we're actively attempting to lure an expansion. We don't like to steal businesses. We want to find growing businesses that want to expand. But there is a Texas truss manufacturer, Texas-based truss manufacturer that's looking for space in California. And we have an active conversation happening with them about several locations, including the Forest River property.
About the plastics guy on Menlo.
I don't know if I'm familiar with that one.
Is
Is he?
been the guy that's been trying to get his business going for the last 4 years?
What's his cross street?
Menlo and
Buena Vista?
Buena Vista. It's the old Rancho Vet building.
Okay.
Oh, gosh.
Something's happening there.
Yeah,
They're working on it right now.
Well, they're not.
the homeless are there.
Mhm.
It's been
They were last.
sitting within the city for 4 years. The guy's just about ready to have a divorce over it.
Let's talk about it. Let's talk after the meeting. We'll get his number and we'll figure out a way to help him be successful.
You know, Harvard Street's really cute, but then you got that atrocity on State in Florida, that big white building with no roof.
Yep.
What, how come you can't do
So
anything? about that?
we have a. I
It's
guess
ridiculous. Do
we're
it
in
inside of
mo-
there.
we're in motion on some code enforcement related matters that we can't fully discuss in detail. But that building is an active discussion.
There's a safety issue right there.
There's
That building.
an active discussion on that, and at the same time, we're hopeful that there'll be some catalyst projects downtown that will actually begin to encourage the community to look for the downtown. And so you'll see us, and you have seen this from us. We're looking at creating energy in the downtown. So we held the Chalktober Festival at the library downtown. We have a pop-up experience now at Carmelita in Florida, where every Saturday night from 5 to 10 for the next 5 weeks, I believe, and it could be expanded if it's successful. And they might even relocate to expand because it is successful. That's the inside scoop. But that will happen for the next 5 weeks. And you may have seen our prolific viral post on Instagram last night that Chick-fil-A.
I saw that, yeah. Yep.
Downtown.
Yep.
They're gonna be paying rent, they're gonna be contributing sales tax. We have a few city staff that are living nearby that location. I'm sure they'll be a part of it. They intentionally wanted to be near the hospital because even nurses and doctors like Chick-fil-A and take long 1-hour breaks, and they can make it over there and back. And we want to invite the community into downtown and reacquaint them to a facility that's actually been closed for a little while. But Chick-fil-A, I'm sure, is looking for permanent space in Hemet, so this is a temporary situation. But we also are dropping a kitchen grant this week. Applications will be open probably later this week, early next week. And we expect to have $300,000 to $500,000 on the table to help open a new restaurant. So it will require some private contributions from an investor and a committed business plan in order for the city to choose to invest in it. But it's a step towards reestablishing some energy downtown. And if you haven't been to a couple of the new businesses, we've got a grand opening for the yoga shop. Is that tomorrow? I think it's tomorrow or Thursday. Is tomorrow Thursday? Good.
No, tomorrow's Wednesday.
I was last night. We just opened they just opened Eagle Brew Coffee a couple months ago. very successful.
What
Harder to find a
coffee, did you say?
coffee,
What is it?
Eagle Brew.
Eagle Brew, where's that at? Cause I'm a big coffee lover.
Oh, you have to check it
'Cause
out.
I've been to
It's just a
Europe
block
and had
away.
really good
You
stuff.
can walk there after the meeting.
Was it?
Yes,
See, I didn't know about that.
yeah. Yeah, it's right on Florida.
Where the county building is there anything in talks
The
about?
county building on State Street.
State?
Oakland and
No,
Santa Fe.
Oakland and Santa Fe, across from Carl's Jr. We have a lot of people that like to hang out there.
Yeah.
that shouldn't
Yes, the old
Yeah.
Sears building
be. Yeah,
back in the day.
yes.
And Stater Brothers and.
I don't
Uh-huh.
think we have an active conversation for that site, but we do have an active project in design at Menlo and State.
Okay.
Menlo and State,
Yeah,
is
that's,
that
I
Menlo?
have a lot of stories about where the county building is.
Yeah, they're
It's just very unsafe.
And San Jacinto.
They did put up a fence over some of it now, like where DJ's restaurant used to
Yeah.
be. In
Yeah.
that section,
That's helping a little bit.
yeah.
Unfortunately, that's where they get all their benefits, so
Yeah, that's why they're there, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's why they're there.
it's really hard
Yeah,
to police that area.
they hang
Yeah.
out there a lot and across the street by
Yeah.
Carl's too.
The big tree.
Mhm.
I don't think
Yeah.
we're ever gonna be able to clean that up, you know?
We will. We just need more cooperation with property owners, and we're working on that property across the street from the just north of Carl's Jr. in that field.
Oh,
We're
yes.
working with the
Yeah.
property owner.
Oh,
with
that's good
code
to know.
enforcement.
Yeah, because I know a lot of those little buildings are kind of empty there right now, so they're hanging out
Yeah.
there a lot,
Yeah.
breaking in and.
What about
Yeah.
behind,
Mm.
right here? that
Yeah.
Building behind us.
So there's an active conversation on that. I think that the council tabled that item until 2 weeks from now. So there's a potential lot split for that property.
Okay.
And there's a council action that's needed potentially. And they'll be coming back in a week to talk about that. So that's an active conversation.
And it's really sad. We have a really sad mall.
Mm,
It's
mhm.
so sad. We do have that substation there. And I worked in that substation for a couple of years. And there's just nobody coming in that mall.
It's not the same traffic that I saw when I worked for J.C. Penney's in 1987.
Oh, you work with J.C. Penney's? Oh, my
You
God.
don't remember me?
I worked at Harris's.
The greatest
Pretty
day
funny.
was when the bus would show up from Sun City,
Oh, really?
shoppers. Gotta start that up again.
Yeah, let's get that bus out there. Bring them all in. That's pretty funny. I think the mall, whoever owns that mall, I think he's taking that as a tax deduction, to tell you the truth.
The ones that work in the office told me that one time.
Oh, really?
It's just a loss.
Yeah, it's just a loss for him. I know they wanted to put in a big restaurant in there and they put a nix on that. But they wanted to put in a Olive Garden, in fact. I don't know if you knew about that. And
Olive Garden would be a nice contribution to him.
yeah, and the manager said no. Not putting that in here.
He said no to the Disney store too.
Say what?
He said no to the Disney store.
Well,
About
the manager doesn't even live in town. He lives in Utah or someplace like that. And he only comes out once every couple of weeks or something.
Well, I think the bottom line is we need to find some new businesses to open, right?
Mhm.
Generate sales tax. So we can talk about all those dollars that are gonna be invested in Measure U services and people.
Right,
Like,
right.
you know,
Mhm,
Yep.
exactly.
We'll bring Ben to the next meeting and introduce him.
Oh, that'd be great. Yeah,
If you'd like,
that'd be great.
we can give you a little summary of our economic.
Yeah,
Would you like that? Because
yeah.
I think
Yeah.
that'd be
Mr.
good.
Sandoval and I put together, we decided to save the city about $100,000 of consulting dollars. And we're not sending that invoice to the city council. But we've written an award-winning Hemet Rises economic strategy, resurgent investment strategy for economic success. It's full of a lot of good ideas. We're actioning a number of those right now. We talked about a number of those ideas with the investors today, like a campground expansion, so an incentive to build a campground. There's a couple of locations that make sense, but imagine diversifying that. We're not capturing a lot of hotel tax today, but imagine a brand new campground that invites the urban folks, that direction into the SoCal wildlands, which are out here.
Mhm.
And we give them the Diamond Valley experience. We give them Simpson.
Yeah, we have a beautiful
Park.
lake.
Right, we
Yeah.
get Simpson Park. We get it built before the Olympics so they can fill it up when they want to head down to the equestrian opportunities in Temecula. I mean, we're trying to inspire the investors to think about this too. But it's going to take a significant a significant subsidy to probably bring them here in the first place, but it will eventually pay dividends, just as the city leaders 30 years ago were envisioning taking the auto dealers from this side of town
Yeah.
over here into an auto mall next to the future Highway 79. We're trying to think of ways that we can help the city 20 or 30 years from now as well.
Well, I was a real estate agent for 6 years. And our motto was, and this is true, reality is nothing, perception is everything. So somehow the perception of Hemet's got to change.
Yeah.
You go outside of Hemet, oh, you live in Hemet? Oh my God. Did you get robbed today? You know, the
I get
perception of Hemet is really, really bad.
Right, that's why we shared information about the crime rate has been steadily dropping since the
You
investment
know,
with
an annual
Measure U.
report. Please share that
Yes.
information.
Right. And I want to let you know that one of the council initiatives this current year was to bring on a firm to help us with that exact reputational issue and enhance our branding. And so the community is going to be invited into a conversation over the next couple of months. And one of the website, the initial ask is going to be to complete an online survey at a website that's going to be called hemetvoices.com. And we're going to be asking the community to weigh in and share answers to questions, the way they feel about the community, et cetera. And eventually it will roll into focus group meetings, stakeholder outreach, et cetera, community outreach, some iterative processes, just like we're going to work with you to see your letter refined. That whole branding messaging effort, which will result in a style guide for the city, consistent look, feel, colors, advertising, online communications, et cetera. They are going to be refining that message and developing some marketing strategies for us that will be given to us probably about 6 months from now. That's going to be about the end of that project. And then we'll start to deliver that to the community, but it's community first, but it will be expanded beyond the city of Hemet. So I think you're gonna, these are efforts that we're making. I could tell you in the investment arena, we wouldn't have had today's meeting without our economic strategy and some of the things that we've deployed. We're opening doors to investors that are taking a hard look at the opportunities that we have here. And there's some exciting conversations that are happening.
That is really neat. I was gonna say, what about getting a group of people together to rebrand the image of the town? That makes me
That's
really happy
exactly
that
what
that's
this,
going on.
right, that's exactly what's gonna be asked, and we will happily request that when you learn about the Hemet Voices effort and stakeholder outreach and things like that, that you help us identify people that are willing to talk to the consultant who's gonna be reaching out. So I think there are some specific dates. They're gonna be here in June. Doing some active, heavy engagement, and I think we've got over 100 different interview slots scheduled, and some of those will be focus groups. So hopefully hundreds and hundreds of people will be part of collectively building this effort.
I would love to be involved in that.
Yeah.
That's much needed.
Okay.
Well, there's a lot of little small communities like Hemet that are very successful. Even though, they're not even near the freeways, but they're successful because of the perception of that town. Oh, I want to go there. Look how cute that is, that type of
One
thing.
of the reasons we're launching a beautification contest for the second year in a row next week, because we want to show the before and after and encourage people to take care of their yards. Showcase that. We're offering $1,000 prizes for each of the council districts, an overall grand prize of 1,000 and a commercial property on the grand prize. I was hoping that City Hall could compete for that, but I don't see a governmental category. We are painting our building right now, as you can tell. We're trying to set a good example for the community. And we're fixing Fire Station 1 and our police headquarters upstairs too. And
We'll do
Station 3.
competition, Fire Station 1 and Police Station against City Hall.
Station 3 is gonna get a little love this year, although it needs a lot of love. So you saw some money in the budget for that. You'll see $120,000 surplus supplemental appropriation.
That was an easy win for the beautification contest.
And I just wanted to touch on real quick, so I missed the last meeting, I was representing Hemet with the California Fire Service leadership up in Visalia. And I can tell you, one of the programs that we started here last year, our Community Risk Reduction Cadet Program is, it's becoming a program that is being noticed by, throughout the state of California. And in fact, the state fire marshal, Daniel Berlant, had a sidebar conversation with me and wants to come down to Hemet and physically look at this program and how we started it. And so in terms of saving money, so this is funded through ARPA dollars. So no Hemet dollars at all. And we actually get to employ 20 cadets that are basically of high school to junior college age. So it's a range of about 17 through 21. And they go out and they do community beautification projects. They go out and do risk management, like field reduction and vegetation management. And they started last summer. It was their first cohort. They did an outstanding job all over town, and including Four Seasons, 2100 South State, where they actually they literally disposed of thousands of tires and all kinds of hazards. It's amazing. And in fact, it's so amazing that we had over 120 new applicants for this second cohort that's going to start in June. And we have 14 out of the 20 from last year that want to return. So, it's a success story. And then you're seeing those same cadets now go into EMT school, and we're creating true pathways into public safety. So, yeah, hopefully you guys can see some of their work and coming up soon.
Oh, good.
Well,
Yeah.
even just on a personal level, you can see their confidence level, and how they come to council meetings
cool.
and yeah. And then you have the girls' youth empowerment.
Yeah.
Okay.
Girls Youth Empowerment. And again, another perfect example, Chief Webb did a fantastic job, and one of our engineers, Samantha Harper, really driving that. It was a very successful event that was just well attended, and same thing. Now we have, thankfully, so we just applied for a grant with Chuck Washington's office to help us out with that, and that's going to happen. Our CTE program that started at Alessandro High School 3 years ago, that's now expanded to Hemet High and the West Valley. And so those same kids now have become explorers and cadets. And so you're kind of seeing all this just homegrown talent that are going to be our future, hopefully our future police officers and firefighters.
And city managers.
Yeah, there you go.
We're actually donating, they donated a fire truck. We're donating a car on May 9th. Actually, we're donating a police car.
Yeah,
Oh,
So
okay.
Oh, nice.
Okay.
we'll share that day with you guys if you guys want to show up.
it's pretty cool. If you guys go to this classroom, you're going to be like, man, I wish I had a class like this in high school. They have a fire engine, an ambulance, and police cars sitting in a garage. Pretty cool. Yeah, with all the gear and everything. So,
Nice.
yeah, thank you all for your support.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
All right, so should we first go to getting the volunteers? Or, sure, I'm looking at the way everything's written here, so it's kind of like. Okay, so we need volunteers on the committee to 2 to 3 to begin to initiate preparation of a draft transmittal letter to city council. Okay,
All right, I guess I'll volunteer.
okay. We can have up to 3. Okay, all right.
Meeting in person will be difficult for me, but I am very capable of writing documents.
And you can meet virtually, you can meet in person, you can meet at a coffee shop. We don't need to put out an
Well,
agenda.
we should go to that new coffee.
But the people that volunteer.
Yeah.
We're happy to help you, work on, what do you need, how do you help answer the questions that are being asked of you in the reso? And then we'll choreograph, making sure that your transmittal to the committee is done in time for publication of the agenda for the next meeting, things like that. So Tiffany will be your lead.
So what is the end date? When,
Well,
is it June when everything's done?
it is. We need to work backwards from the council adoption of the budget.
Mhm.
And this resolution requires us to provide at least 5 days notice, right? Of
Yeah.
publishing the recommendations before the council meeting. So I think the reality for us at the given hour now is that we're looking to the first or second meeting in June as the budget adoption meeting. It would be better for us to all focus on the first meeting for now and use the second meeting as a backup. So if we focus on the first meeting in June and work backwards 5 days, that's the last day that we can really have your signed letter. For now, if we work backwards, what's the second meeting in June?
The 10th.
June 10th, so June 5th-ish? Is that
Probably the
Or
4th.
the
Fourth.
yeah, at the very latest, the third or the fourth.
So there's a lot of work that needs to happen over the next 35 days. That's kind of the time frame for us.
And we do have another meeting scheduled for the 20th, which we can reschedule, but if more, that allows you guys time to meet and kind of discuss things. If you had further questions, that at least gives us that date to go over additional items. So.
And it allows you time to prepare a letter and to bring it to us, see what we're thinking as well,
Right.
get some feedback. And then you can go back to the drawing board and fix whatever you need to.
Well, I'm confused.
First time.
Okay, wait a minute, I'm confused, so. The three of us volunteers have to come up with a letter.
Yes,
You're not gonna be there.
no.
So do you have any idea what we're supposed to be doing? I mean, are you gonna give us some guidelines or give us something to look at?
Yeah.
Give you examples of what documents look like in the past.
Okay,
We do think that the committee has an opportunity to expand on some of the writing in the past and add attachments to the letter. Maybe exhibits, if there are charts, for example, that one with the discount rate. I can just imagine seeing that chart sitting as an attachment to your letter.
Yeah.
That explains that gee whiz, but for the pension costs that we're subsidizing, we would have an opportunity to meet that 1.2 ratio and put another $4 million into our streets. Or incentive programs or whatever,
Yeah.
right? More officers. So I think there'll be opportunities for you to use some of the exhibits that Tiffany is providing to you. And refer to them in your writing. We also encourage a minority perspective if you want to, if you get to a point where you're wrapping up the letter and you all agree, that's great. And if you have a couple of perspectives that you feel that the best way out is to offer an opportunity for those two people to write up their thoughts, or three people, or whatever it is. And you could consider adding an alternative perspective on an opinion, just like the Supreme Court offers different types of opinions from time to time, right? You could do the same thing. So it's probably good food for thought. I think you could also summarize the meetings that you've held and explain what you've accomplished at each of the meetings. What material have you reviewed? What have you discussed and considered? So your letter could also include a recap or an attachment. An exhibit to that letter could be a recap of what you've done, what you've learned about. There's an item on today's agenda that will come after this, which you've never seen before. This committee has never seen because the city council saw it for the first time about a week ago. Is it a week ago?
Yeah.
And it's an exercise that helps city councils and bodies like this see some challenging financial times coming about a year or two in advance. So it gives them time to react and adjust to prevent bad, worse things from happening. And so we'll go through a little municipal health diagnostic this afternoon as well.
Okay. All right, so thank you for the presentation on the expenditures. So do we have any further comments from the committee? Okay. So do you want me to read the discussion question or?
Oh, I think we can just proceed with a motion.
With a motion, okay. Can I get a motion with the audit, about the audited expenditures for the fiscal year?
Committee.
Oh, for the ad hoc?
Yes.
Oh, for the ad hoc, okay. All right, can I get a motion about the ad hoc committee?
Make motion of the three named people that have volunteered. Thank you for being a volunteer of volunteers. To meet as needed with city staff's help to come up with a letter for Measure U to the city council.
I second.
All right, thank you.
Deputy City Clerk, may we have a roll call?
Thank you, Chair. We have a motion by Vice Chair Clark, second by Chair Chanel, to appoint an ad hoc committee consisting of committee members Mraz, Amat, and Collins to initiate the preparation of the draft transmittal letter to the city council to meet as needed. I will do a roll call. Committee member Amat,
Yes.
committee member Banuelos,
Yes.
committee member Collins,
Yes.
committee member Mraz.
Yes.
Vice Chair Clark,
Yes.
Chair Chanel.
Yes.
That motion passed 6-0.
Okay, can we please get a report from staff on item 6B?
I'm very cold, so I
Okay.
feel like I'm gonna start shivering.
Okay, well, we take a, 10-minute break?
No.
Okay. Okay.
See? Yeah, we can hold, I feel great. I just started saying here.
I'm like ready to,
Your voice is.
yeah, I could tell my voice was ready just to start.
Like these child.
No.
Oh, you're 100 million.
No.
Okay.
No, we-
Yeah.
Item 6B.
Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and give a presentation on what is called the California Municipal Financial Health Diagnostic. If you want to open this PowerPoint. And I'll try and make it fairly brief. Not very long. So just for a little background, this diagnostic is a tool developed by Michael Coolman, who is the principal fiscal policy advisor to the California Society of Municipal Finance Officers, also known as CSMFO, which is the big main guru for finance people in government. This is technically a report card to validate areas in which the city is fiscally healthy, identify programs and areas to improve upon, help management and elected officials identify and act to remedy problems and address them before they become unmanageable, avoid being blindsided by problems, and help others understand the city's financial position. This tool was initiated by the League of California Cities and has been endorsed by the Government Finance Officer Association, also known as GFOA, and used in numerous cities throughout California. So this is actually was recommended by Mark to go through the process to do what the background kind of gives to where we can go and kind of see where we stand and where we're looking forward at in a very simplistic manner. So it's divided into two sections, a financial distress checklist and then a financial health indicator. The indicators are linked to the 14-point checklist and provide detailed formulas and methods for determining your financial section. So attached into the more in-depth process is a back end where we entered all of the numbers, all of the data into the workbook, and it actually does all of the math for you, and it lets you determine where you stand in a methodology as a green, yellow, and red. So of course, green being you're in a good standing, red is cautionary, and then yellow is cautionary, and red is a warning indicator. I don't want to say danger, but so you have your indications of a crisis. And this is like a checklist, and depending on how you answer them, it will tell you if you are in a crisis mode. So failure to pay an undisputed claim from a creditor within 90 days past claim date. We do not meet this criteria. Failure to forward income taxes withheld for over 30 days past due. We don't meet this criteria. We do report every 2 weeks after all of our income taxes are deducted from employees, and as well as our own reporting annually. Failure to make required pension fund contributions on time. We do make our committed payments to CalPERS every 2 weeks, so we do not meet that criteria. Missing a payroll for 7 days. Our employees have never missed payroll, so we don't meet that criteria. Available unrestricted balance for general fund at current fiscal year will be negative. And with the newest motion of our council, we do have a 40% reserve that actually will is helping our fund balance. But then we also do have an unrestricted, which is the unassigned fund balance that is still well over $20 million. So with this checklist, the city of Hemet is not in any kind of financial distress. Then we move into the health indicators, and this kind of takes your snapshot of your current year and the prior 2 years. And depending on how many, if you've reported it like once or once, you become yellow. If it's twice in those 3 years, then of course it's red. But as you go through the indicators, you can see we're mainly green, which is healthy. We do have 4 areas of caution. The net operating deficit surplus. There are no recurring general fund operating deficits. General revenues are sufficient to meet net general revenue demand for programs. This current year, we actually had to use general fund reserves to balance our budget. So that's why we are in a cautionary status right now. Moving into the fiscal year 25-26, which we discussed today, we are going to have to dip into our reserves that at that point. So when we redo this diagnostic, that would turn red instead of being the yellow right now. Our fund balance is very healthy right now. It's the healthiest balance that it's ever been in the history of the city. Our capital assets, we do keep pace with the aging assets. It's probably not at the level that some staff would like to see it, but we do have where we contribute to equipment replacement. So that's all departments kind of contribute into the replacement of the police vehicles, any of the fire engines or trucks, anything for, public works. We do contribute to our capital assets, so that we can replace them as they do age out. The next one is our liquidity, short-term investments that are sufficient to cover our liabilities, which is kind of a 60-day savings account to make sure we can get through 60 days of operating. We actually almost have $100 million in liquid funds. So that is significant, and it has never, ever been that high. And that's just all that's sitting in short-term investments, earning over 4%. So that's good. Our fixed costs and labor costs, salaries and benefits are stable or decreasing over multiple years relative to reasonable expected revenue growth. This right now is currently healthy. Our salary and benefits are stable. They are short-term and expected to increase. As long as our expenditures grow at least at the same rate or in excess of what we're spending, we will remain in a healthy status. But this is something that we may want to look into closer in the future years. And then our general fund subsidies, other funds, any general fund subsidies, other enterprise and special funds are sustainable and in compliance with adopted policy. And that is, we are in compliance with that, so we are healthy. So the second portion is the practices and conditions of the city. And we do have 3 categories in here that are in a cautionary status. The first one, constraints and budgetary discretion. The city council authority to make budget changes is not excessively constrained by charter, contract, or law, which means there's nothing that's really restricted of them to allocate any of the fund balance on certain projects. Balancing the budget with temporary funds, the use of reserves, selling assets, deferring asset maintenance to balance the general fund has been limited, prudent, and in compliance with adopted policy. Unfortunately, current year, we have had to use reserves. So that is why we are in the cautionary status. Looking into next year, we are going to have to also use our reserves, which will then become a red indicator at that point. That's really the only thing that we are looking at is use of reserves. We're not looking to sell any assets or defer any kind of maintenance or anything like that. We're still in a good spot.
We are deferring maintenance on vehicles in the draft budget this next year. So in the current year, we're not, but we are essentially requesting that we'll take an extra year for the vehicles that we have.
Yeah.
And that is about an $880,000 cost savings.
It's not on the maintenance itself, it's on the contribution to the replacement of the equipment. Balance the budget by deferring employee compensations, pension liabilities and other non-salary benefits have been determined, disclosed and actuarially funded in compliance with adopted policy. They are, we do know what our pension liabilities are for the future years. And the non-salary benefits have been determined, which would be, our health benefits. We do account for increases over the years, so we do have that accounted for. We do have actuarial studies done every year, especially on our workers' comp and our liability. So we do know to where we're going to stand and how we do need to budget. So we're healthy in that category. Balancing the budget with backloaded debt service payments. We are probably one of the fewest cities that does not have any debt. So we don't even have to worry about debt. Number 12 is funding operating costs with non-recurring revenue. Ongoing operating costs are being funded with ongoing rather than temporary revenues. This is where we kind of discussed the use of like investment income. We're not looking to take into account that's how we're going to balance. We know that it's probably going to come in that way, but we don't want to use that as balancing because it's not going to be ongoing. It's just temporary because rates are so high right now. So we're healthy in that category. The timeliness and accuracy of the financial reports are being filed on time, which is the ACFR and our state controller's report. For the most part, we do stay in a timely manner, except for our ACFR has this year, you can see we're still waiting for a finalized document and it's almost April 30th. Ideally, it should be done by December 31st. And I can speak on behalf of the finance department that is totally falls on my shoulders for the delinquency in the report. We've just been in a very unique situation for this last 12 months to where the report has just not been able to be a primary focus like it should be to getting it filed in a timely manner. So staff, we are working at improving that in the future years.
Let's explain what some of that let's be really specific. So one challenge is one of the most significant challenges is we're converting to a new enterprise software system, and our staff could have double dipped, and we did allocate some money for some temporary staff, but it's hard to bring in people that don't know your system and train them at the same time you're trying to move fast. And so we're in the middle of a launch of a new financial system that is going to culminate on July 1. So you're finished in not too, a couple months in the future, but it's been a heavy lift. And then we're deploying the development module that downstairs for planning community development that deploys in November. But it's all the same software, Tyler Technologies. And so that's one huge challenge. We had a vacancy in a senior accountant for about half the year. And our labor negotiations last year required the staff to to redo the work of a consultant on compensation because they were such a bad consultant, we fired them. They couldn't literally do data collection. So that required our staff in finance and also human resources to do the work of a consultant and negotiate the contracts at the same time. We did finish on time, which was nice, but it impacted other things that then cascaded. So we see that as a one-time type of scenario that was all the stars aligned at the wrong time.
Yeah. And then service level solvency, public service levels meet the standards and needs of this community. This is in a cautionary status because we truly don't meet that public safety, the police ratio that is defined in Measure U. We also, fire department struggles significantly with the high call volume and the low numbers of personnel that can cover that. And I know the chiefs can speak at more detail at that, but I know fire, they're just, this city gets constant calls and, you know, you can go in a ride along or be with them for the day and just, there's just not a break and, there's not enough personnel to cover all of the workload. So, the service levels do suffer in that category, and that's something that we need to address and look at closely and monitor. So, these are like the indicators that will flag and kind of tell us as management within the city as well as the council and the public members that this is kind of where we're lacking and we need to really look into and cinch our belt on things that we're doing. And then the third piece of this is our adopted financial policies. We actually do have a good set of financial policies. However, they can be elaborated on and actually address a lot more specific details. But on the surface level, they do exist. So that's why we have them marked. The only one that is not clearly, that isn't defined at all is a pay-as-you-go financing, which is something that we really don't participate in. So it's not critical, but this is something too that we are looking at augmenting as we move forward in the future, because it's always good to look back at your policies and see where you're at and where future's heading. I know a lot of agencies had a lower like threshold for capital assets of $5,000. We actually have it for $10,000, but other agencies are changing that threshold because the cost of equipment has increased. So it's really not realistic to keep it at a low threshold. So things like that. And as technology advances, the way that we do banking, those things need to be modified. So it's always good to review your policies, but we do have them in place and we are looking at updating them. And then that is actually the end of the presentation. So it was actually a really good exercise to go through. Like I said, you just drop all your data into the spreadsheets and it flows through and it lets you analyze your red, yellow, green, and kind of pick where you're sitting. And yeah, so I think if future finance people in the city can carry forward this tradition.
You're not leaving, are you?
Oh, maybe in a couple of years.
Oh.
Not anytime soon, as long as they'll keep me. But yeah, if you have any questions on that, I'm available. Otherwise, that's the end of the presentation.
Okay, all right, thank you for the presentation. Are there any comments from the committee on this item? Okay, by consensus, the committee will receive and file the California Municipal Financial Health Diagnostic Report. Okay, we will now move on to committee member and staff comments. Are there any additional comments from the committee or staff?
I'll say one thing. Galloway Down does not have in the Olympics this year. It's going to Santa Anita.
Really?
Yeah,
Oh.
it happened last week.
Oh.
Say that again?
The Galloway Down, which is
Temecula.
Temecula, was supposed to be the equestrian center for the LA 28 Olympics.
Yeah.
A lot of dollars from the IOC coming in. But that was kind of used as a pawn. They wanted Santa Anita to actually get the track again when they got it in 80 or 84, whatever it was.
Wow.
So yeah, that was just leverage, and then they got what they wanted from Santa Anita, so they got it again, so it will be coming to visit.
We'll still host them at our campground.
That's good.
That's interesting. Wow. Yeah.
Big screen with off-site betting. At the campground.
Yeah, exactly.
They took away like Paris as being a venue as well.
Yeah.
So.
I had one other quick one.
Mhm.
At our last meeting, we talked about how the police department has their social media person is really getting out a lot of stuff. You know, daily basis, kind of educating the citizens out there, what's
Yeah.
going on. And if you don't already have it for the fire end, and I knew you guys were busy,
Yeah.
but in the mornings when I get on and I pull up
The pulse.
Pulse Point, it's like, wow,
Mhm.
you know, there,
It's-
it's,
I'll just share, I just was in Marina Valley the other day, getting a tour of their EOC and. Marina Valley is a city of 225,000 people. They run 25,000 calls a year. We run 20,000 calls a year, right? They have 11 companies, we have 6. Right? So
Wow.
you can see we're busy.
Who's, you think is the main people calling? Is it elderly that need help or is it?
So the majority of our calls, most like any fire department, are EMS related. And so, we do have, there's a lot of people that need help, certainly within our community. We do have elderly population, but we're seeing a shift. We also have obviously, unfortunately, there's the drug epidemic that's everywhere. But then we're also very busy fire-wise. We're a very busy fire department, which in California is actually rare, because there's a lot of new construction and things like that. So our firefighters are very active in structure and wildland firefighting.
Wow.
Yeah.
We average over a fire per day,
Mhm.
well over a fire per day, which is actually quite.
I didn't realize that.
That's very busy.
That many fires. That's kind of scary.
It is, and we're really trying to work, emphasize a lot more on the fire prevention side of the house and community risk reduction, which honestly wasn't taking place for a long time here.
Yeah.
And now we're grateful that we're implementing those programs. Yeah.
we could get the courts to keep our little firebug in longer.
Sure.
That would be nice. We see them walking up and down Gerard a lot on our end.
Yeah, why is that guy on the loose? I mean, seriously.
I can answer that stuff, I don't know.
No one's gonna answer that question here. We're all asking the same question. It's our court systems. There's not enough beds in jails or so until it gets prison time, it's gonna be.
What's sad, when I moved down here to a huge county and with a huge budget compared to the Humboldt County that I just spent 30 years in. Our mental health system up there was so much more than what's available here. And we would deal with somebody on the street and we had immediate places for them to go. Even if it was short term, but lockdowns, immediate. The police department up there now has, I think, 3 separate teams that are multidisciplinary. That they actually are out with the officers. It's like putting city net in with the officers. And
We have mental health team attached to an officer here.
yeah.
I plan on having a second team also out there, but again, it's only at the most 72 hours.
Yeah.
And a lot of times they let them out within 12 hours. And that's the mental health facilities.
Yeah.
Not our jails.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's an issue throughout California.
Mhm.
Okay, do we have our next meeting date? I know we were
Yeah,
discussing.
right now it is the 20th, May 20th, it's scheduled.
Mhm.
I don't know if we want to push that down a couple days or into the following week. Or what everybody's availability is.
So we're looking at potentially the 22nd as an alternative to the 20th.
What day is that? A Thursday?
Thursday.
That's fine. I can do either one.
22nd, yeah, 22nd is fine with me.
That's a much better date for me.
Yeah.
Yeah, same. We can't do Fridays, right?
You can meet on a Sunday if you want as a team, if the committee has to have a quorum, right? And it's best to try to identify a date and time that works. And so if we're conceptually moving to the 22nd, want to make sure that the time works for everyone too.
Yeah, 3:30.
Yeah, it's fine.
Veronica, is that good with you?
Veronica?
Sorry, guys, my mute button is not working. Yes, it works. The 22nd, that's perfect.
Okay,
Thank you, Veronica.
all
No
right.
problem.
Okay. All right. There being no further business, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you for joining us today.
Yes. Be my card.